Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, AutoCrib Software Cycle Counting. Today we'll be using the AutoCrib.net to demonstrate the cycle counting module. My name is Vivian Lee and I will be your presenter today. You have all joined this webinar in listen-only mode, which means that everyone is muted. You will have time at the end of today's session to submit your questions through the questions tool. The webinar is being recorded and a link to a video will be uploaded to the AutoCrib support portal at the end of the session. So in today's webinar, we will walk through the AutoCrib.net software cycle counting module. We will create item or bin classifications, generate the cycle count list, and update the physical count. So what is cycle counting? A cycle count is an inventory management procedure where a small subset of inventory is counted on any given day. Cycle counts contrast with the traditional physical inventory in that physical inventory stops operations at a facility and all items counted are counted at one time. So cycle counts are less disruptive to the daily operations. It provides an ongoing measure of inventory accuracy, and it could also be tailored to focus on items with either higher value or higher movement. So the purpose of the inventory cycle counting module in the AutoCrib.net software is to aid in counting inventory on a regular basis, to keep track of what was counted and when, and also to prioritize which inventory should be counted. Verifying inventory totals is critical to avoid stockouts, and it also helps with accounting purposes. So in today's webinar, we will walk through utilizing the AutoCrib.net software to first create your item or bin classification. Then we are going to generate the cycle count list. And finally, we will take a look at how to update the physical counts in the software. So we will begin with creating the item or bin classification first. I'm going to log into the AutoCrib.net software. So this is the demo database that I'm going to be using today. So first, I'm going to click on the inventory menu to get to the cycle counting module. So once I click on inventory, I'm going to click on the cycle counting module. And the first tab I'm going to select here, or a link, is called the ABC Analysis. So this is where we go to first create our bin or item classification. So the first step is to determine whether you want to analyze your data by item or by bin. So for item-based systems such as RoboCribs, you would want to select your analysis by item. If you have a tool room, coil vending machine, or Elevens, those are all bin-based machines. In that case, you would want to select your bin. You want to analyze your data by bin. So in this walkthrough today, we are going to analyze our data for a tool room. So I'm going to go ahead and select the bin radio button. Next, we are going to take a look at the look back period. So you would need to set up a look back period for your data. And the options that you have is the last 30 days, the last 3 months, the last 6 months, or if you want to look at the data for the last year. So you have to make sure that you have transactional data in the AutoCrypt system that matches your look back period. So once you select your look back period, you now want to select your analysis type. And there are 4 different types that you can choose from. The first one is the issues, which equals the number of issues. It determines the number of issues completed in the look back period that you have chosen. So for our example here, we are going with 1 year for our look back period. So these are going to be all issues that were done in the last year. The next analysis type is called velocity, and that is the number of issues times the package quantity. So it's the total number of items issued. So it's issues times package quantity, and that will be analyzed again based off of your look back period of 1 year. So the issues and velocity options, those are both based on the quantity of items that were issued out of the machine. The average investment and the sales dollars options, those are both based on a dollar amount. So the first one here, the average investment, that is equal to the average value of your inventory. So it determines the value of all unconsumed inventory in the entire AutoCrypt system. And then it takes the quantity times the unit price for those items. And the last option you have here is the sales in dollars, which is equal to the velocity times the unit price. So it's the total value of your total items issued. So issues times package quantity times the unit price, and that determines the value of consumed inventory. So again, whatever you select here, these are all calculated using a historical time period that you select here in the set look back period. So once you've selected your analysis type and your look back period, you now need to go and define the different classes. So if you look here, we have classes ranging from A through F. So the purpose of defining the classes for a set of items is to count the A and B classes more frequently than C, D, E, and F classes. So for example, if there are high moving items in the AutoCrypt system, the inventory counts should be counted more often for those items because there's a higher potential for error in those highly used bins. So we are going to define our classes here. And we selected the number of issues. So we are going to classify our items based on the number of issues. So for Class A, I'm going to enter 50 issues. For Class B, 40. For Class C, 30. For Class D, 20. For Class E, 10. And 5 issues for Class F. And then for each of these classes, you then want to define the count frequency. So how often are you going to count those classes? So Class A would have to be counted more frequently, and Class F the least. And then you can set your count frequency either by days or by months. I'm going to go ahead and select months for all of my counting frequencies. And I'm going to start with Class A to be counted once a month, Class B every 3 months, Class C every 6 months, Class D every 9 months, Class E every 12 months, and Class F every 24 months. So once I've entered all the information here, I can then reassign those classes to all the bins. But if I have ran the analysis before, and I only want to classify these on new items, I can select the Classify Only New Bins radio button. But by default, it will select Reassign All Bins. So if you're doing the analysis for the first time, you probably would want to select the Reassign All Bins. So once you're done here, to calculate or run your analysis, you just click the Run Analysis button. You will then receive a confirmation pop-up. Are you sure you want to reassign ABC class for all bins? We're going to go ahead and click on Yes. So now to check our analysis, to see the results of our analysis once it's been computed, we can click on the cycle count link here on the left under cycle counting. And from this screen, we can then see or run our analysis or look at the results. So the first drop down here is the crib drop down. So if you are ready to count or you want to see what needs to be counted, you can either select an individual crib to count, or you can leave the default, which is for all cribs. You can then classify which class you would like to run the cycle count on. So you can select an individual class, or you can select all to view all classes. And finally, the method. If you want to see all the items and count all the items, or you can select the next count date, which is either less than or equal to today's date. But if you're running it for the first time, then you would want to choose all for your method. But once you have your system going, then you can just count whatever is due, which it would be the next count less than or equal to the current date. So once you've made your choices or your selections from the drop-downs, you can then click on the Go button. And this will give you the results here on your screen. So here you can see the crib number that needs to be counted, the bin number, because we ran our analysis by bin, the item that goes in that bin, the description 1 for that item, the class that was assigned to that item. You can then view the on-hand quantities, the burn quantities, the last date that it was counted, and then the next date in which this item or bin would need to be counted. So at this point, you would want to go into our reports and print out a report that will display all of this information that you can take to your crib. And while you're doing your counting, you can then update any discrepancies and write it down on that report. So the reports that you would utilize are located under the Reports module. So you would go ahead and click Reports. And from here, you're going to select Standard. And from the report category, we are going to select Inventory. And click the Go button. Okay, so if you ran your cycle count by item, if you chose item, then you would want to run the cycle count by item report. And if you selected bin, then you would run the cycle count by bin report. Tool room is if it's a tool room type crib. And then if it's a vending machine, like a coil vending machine, then you would run the cycle count by item vending. So we're going to select the cycle count by bin tool room. And from here, you just click the Preview and Print button. So these are all the items that were not assigned a class. However, we do have some items that were assigned a class. So you can click here if you just want to view all the items that were assigned to Class A. These are all the items that were assigned to Class D. Here's a list for Class E and Class F. So depending on which items you want to count, you would then go ahead and print the report. So you can use the print button up here, or you can also export the report and save it to a thumb drive or a computer drive and then print it from there. So the report, in addition to showing you the class, it'll show you what bin needs to be counted. It'll show you the item that's in that bin. Let's take one with more items here. So here's the bin, and also it breaks it down by crib. So if you have several tool rooms, these items are all for tool room 0000, and this item here is for tool room 002. So it breaks it down by the tool room, and then the bin number, the item that belongs to that bin, the description. Here is the on-hand quantity. So this is what the system currently thinks is on hand. And if there's any burn, that would be listed under the burn quantity field. And here are the count fields. So this is where you would record any discrepancies as you are going through your bin counts. If you find any discrepancies, we still need to update the AutoCrib software. But first, we will write it down here on our sheet. Then we'll bring the sheet over to the AutoCrib.net system, and we will update it in there. So once you're done with the report, you can go ahead and click the Close button to close it out. So now you will walk with the report. You'll go to your tool room. You will count all the bins, all the items in the bins, record any discrepancies on your report. And once you are ready to update the AutoCrib system, you will come back and log back in to AutoCrib.net. Again, you will navigate or click on the Inventory menu. From here, you're going to click on the Cycle Counting module. And we are going to select the default, which is the cycle count. So you don't even need to click on it. It already goes directly to that screen when you click cycle counting. So again, you're going to have to select the crib that you just finished counting, or leave all cribs. You're going to select the item or the class of items that you've counted, and again, the method. Then click Go, and this will give you the list of all your Class F items that we just finished counting. If no discrepancies were found, you can just go ahead and click on Select All button here at the bottom. So once I click Select All, it'll put a check mark next to all the items. And then you would just click the Stamp Count Date. And then it will populate the last count date as today's date. And then it'll calculate the next count date in the next count field. The None button here is just to uncheck or deselect all of those items. And then you can also stamp the count date for items individually just by checking the little box here to the right of the item that you want to stamp. So let's say that we have counted the bin here, bin 03. So I'm going to go ahead and put a check mark. This bin was okay. No discrepancies. I'm going to click on Stamp Count Date. So here it entered today's date, and this is the next count date that I have for this item or this bin. If discrepancies were found, we will update them here through doing a physical of that bin. So for example, if we counted only 44 on hand instead of 45, like the system says there should be, I can update the number by clicking on the item. And here I can then go ahead and change my on-hand quantity to the correct quantity. And here you can enter comments that you can then print out on the report later to see why the physical was done. You can enter a comment in here. And once you update to your accounts, you just go ahead and click on OK to save your changes. So now my on-hand quantity is displaying 44. And once I hit OK, it will also stamp it with today's date, and it will calculate the next count date for that bin. So you will just walk through and update the system with any discrepancies. And again, if no discrepancies were found, you can just click on the All button to select all the items, and then click on Stamp Count Date, and it'll populate the last count date with today's date and the next count date. Also, while you are doing your physical count, you can lock the ABC analysis screen so that other users can't go in there and change the classifications that you've made during your cycle count. And to do that, you just click on the Lock ABC Analysis link, and you will see the padlock here is now locked. So when a user goes to the ABC analysis screen, everything in here will be grayed out. So they won't be able to change any of the information. And then to unlock the screen, you can just click on Cycle Count and select Unlock ABC Analysis. And then you can see in your transactions history, so if you go to Transactions and History, all your physicals should be recorded here, so you can later go back and review those as well. So here's the physical transaction that I've created 2 minutes ago. Okay, so this concludes today's webinar on the cycle counting for AutoCrib.net. I'll now be available to answer any questions that you may have relating to the webinar. So you can go ahead and use the chat tool on your console, or the question tool, I'm sorry, to submit your questions. And again,